Hello, brother.
Hello, my friend. I've just woken up, to be honest with you, as well. I've just, I don't know, my sleep's all over the place. So I actually went to meditate about 2.5 hours ago. Unfortunately, I set the alarm.
Well, it's a funny thing you should say that because, again, I know I mentioned Kyle Cease a lot because I follow a lot of his stuff, but he's a big proponent of meditation. And one of the things that he says is when it comes to meditation, there are no rules except, be quiet and close your eyes, basically. That's about it. He doesn't even talk about any breathing techniques. He just says, whatever your body wants, just give it, just allow it to do whatever. If you fall asleep, let it happen.
Yeah. So be it. I mean, the main reason I meditate right now is because I feel tired and I go to lay down. So I say, okay, I'm going to lie down and see what happens.
Yeah.
So I call it meditation. This is the strange thing about this is there's so many people talk about meditation, and I smile. I've got no input. It is what it is for everyone. But there's a guy I watched that talks to meditation as a pointless thing, because meditation means so many different things to many different people.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really call anything meditation because that doesn't pin it down to anything. Because it can be so many different things. It's such an umbrella term that it's kind of pointless using that word. You may as well explain what it is that you do. So I sleep, apparently.
That's funny.
It's not something I put any pressure on, though. This is I don't know if you've done this, William. I went through the period of thinking, how I suppose let's talk loosely over the top of things.
Yes.
Without trying to upset anybody. You know how you sort of move into, I don't know, I think you move into spirituality. Let's say you move into a kind of spiritual aspect where you may go and listen to some things and pick up some information and start to practice things yourself in different ways, right?
And that's a broad term too, by the way. I'll throw that in.
Massively broad.
Yeah.
But you get what I mean. So part and parcel of that is meditation. And I've talked to this before, these things about Zen and balancing or harmonizing the ego and quieting the mind and going in. Yesterday I spoke to Henry, beautiful divine brother, and he says, Lee, you must go into your heart space. Shit, how do I do that? Shit, how do I go into what? No, Henry, what do you go into your hand? How do you get into your heart space, brother? These sort of concepts to me I find funny. Shit, I've got to find Zen. Where's Zen? Okay. Now I'm in confusion, and now I'm almost like frustrated at trying to find these things which are unfindable. Trying to go into my own heart space, which, okay, I get the concept and I get the idea and I get how people can and do, and in others, it doesn't work for me. So what do? Sit there stressed, full of anxiety, wondering why I'm doing this wrong whilst I'm supposed to be meditating and chilling. And all of these concepts come in. So I had to release a lot of this a long time ago and just say, okay, it is what it is. And everybody does what they do.
Yeah.
But nobody's right or wrong in any of this. It just happens.
Well, I heard an expression very early on in my spiritual journey when I started to shift from Catholicism into more of a new agey kind of approach, if you want to call it that. And the expression was pretty simple. I think it actually came from the Course in Miracles, and it basically says, love brings up everything unlike itself. So it's kind of cool. And that's what I thought of when you were sharing that is like, yeah, your intention is that you're going to do some sort of meditation that's going to be of benefit to you.
Yep.
But the moment someone says, oh, well, you need to do it this way, then all of a sudden there's a structure or a commitment or an obligation. And then it's how you react to that. If you let your emotions lead the way, and then you're feeling guilty or whatever emotion comes up for you. And then you're dealing with that and you're going, well, that's not really what meditation is for. So, meditation brings up everything unlike itself, I suppose.
Beautifully said. Everything goes ass backwards as soon as you start putting structure into these things, as opposed to completely organic and just let it free.
Yeah.
Of course, you got there. I suppose you've tried the guided meditations and all of these things where you're listening to somebody else telling you what to do.
Yeah, I've done that. Does that doesn't work for you so much?
No, no, it does, because it's structured. It's somebody telling you what to do, and as if you get it. And this is what I've been finding with a lot of other conversations we've been having. It's fun when conversations can be open both sides without judgment. But experiential things that people are doing and these sort of things that they can do, they ask me, and I don't recognize them in the way that they describe them or in the way that they do them. I just don't get it. So what do I do? So I'm doing something, or do I judge them? Do I judge myself? Or just, okay, what I see is what you're doing, but it doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make it wrong or right. It doesn't make me different or lesser or higher. You, whatever these things then sort of come in. Well, I've purged more than you. That's why I'm doing it. Don't be silly. Everything's equal for me. And I look at equality. So you're doing that and I'm not. Okay. So what do I do that's common to that? What do you get out of that I get out of something else? And are they then, could they be contributed or attributed to be doing the same things in different ways? Is that okay? Can we do things in different ways that are the same? and the conversations that flow from that, then we can both realize, oh, right, you're doing that. And this is this. That's two different ways of doing the same thing. Yep. How many more different ways are there of doing the same thing?
How many people are there in the world?
Right. And then why do we judge one right and one wrong? Why do we consider that this is the right path or that, okay. And this is the beauty of that surrender, that release into, you know what? No, okay. If I go and lay down and meditate, and it means that I sleep for 12 hours, 10 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, and I've got no idea what happened. What's different to somebody going down and focusing and going into their heart space and doing all these different things? There isn't. It's just the experience. Same thing, different experience. So it fascinates me, brother, this sort of these concepts that we've all got, and I've learned to release the majority of the thinking behind it all. This is what it should be. Into, let's see. So the expectation's gone, all these structures gone into, let's see. We'll see, brother. We'll see in the end.
I think of Doris Day. If you remember Doris Day from back in the day, she was known particularly not only for being a movie star, but for a song that she sang called Que Sera Sera. Yeah.
Same rules, right? If you get that, if you could just drop that in, it is what it is. What will be will. And the big thing that sits. One other thing that sits with me is just you can't control what's going on out there, but you can control what's going on in here. So that's peaceful. Whatever else doesn't matter.
And it's interesting too that you mentioned the word control, and I was hearing, some of that or feeling some of that in what you were saying, because I'm going, well, why do we create so many reactions when someone introduces us to something and we're saying, well, we're not doing that, or we're not doing it correctly, or, all those judgments or self-criticisms that come in.
Yeah.
All that, to me, it kind of falls back to that self-indoctrination again. It has to be, there's right and wrong. There's a certain way you must do it. I suppose even the only thing I can think of that has like a hard line right and wrong in my world anyways, is mathematics. You either, and even then it can be
that's arguable.
It can be questionable too, because the new math, maybe 2 + 2 isn't 4 anymore. I don't know, but
it depends on the physics.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in quantum physics, 2 + 2 is infinity. So there you go.
Well, yeah, I love the fact that, let me just say before we continue, William, thank you. I'm so impressed and pleased with what you've been doing with your other characters. And the coming out, and not that the closet kind of idea.
I'll stop it.
You know what I mean? of the progression. Then it's wonderful to see. And I'm just wondering how many are on this call today. Is it just the two of us, or we got a few more?
Just the two of us. I just called you, man. I didn't call anybody else. I wanted to talk to Lee. That's who I wanted to talk to this morning. No, well, actually, you open up a whole new can of worms by just sharing your compliments. And thank you, first of all, because I want to receive that and acknowledge that, complimentary comments. Thank you. And I'm very pleased at what I'm seeing too. And I also want to give credit to where credit is due. And I've been working with Hamid, like one-on-one, and it's through Hamid's work. And I'll be honest, at the beginning, like it's a 90-minute session twice a month that we do, and it's a commitment of 6 straight months. And I have 1 session left, And ironically, it came out of me back in November, December of 2021, basically saying, and this is very unlike me, because I feel like I'm very independent and I like to isolate myself and be in my own little world very often and feel very safe and comfortable there. But I actually was feeling a certain sense of despair and I won't say depression, but borderline sort of sad feelings. And I just remember looking up into the sky and actually out loud saying, God, I need some help. I'm looking for a teacher. I'm looking for a guide. And then I let it go. And then all of a sudden Hamid shows up like 2 weeks later or something like that. And I'm going, no. I said a coach, this doesn't look like a coach to me, And so there was that part of me at the beginning of working with him where not visually, physically, you could see it, but mentally I could feel myself with my arms crossed and say, oh yeah, you prove it. You prove that you can do something for me. And then I was going into my past, right? Oh, all these other things that happened in the past, I'm still having the same issues, the same problems in life. So, those didn't work. How are you going to help me? So I recognized, I didn't dive into it, but I recognized a certain cynicism that I had, that was there. And I'm going, you know what? I'm going to do what he tells me to do, as long as it doesn't, I feel any harm in doing it, because he gave me homework and stuff like that. And so I did. And ironically, along the way, he would compliment me and saying, it's so nice working with you because you actually do the things that I ask you to do.
You're actually trying.
Yeah.
It's the alignment or the parallels are incredible. Really, with what you just spoke to and my own thing, that point of reaching for help, where you looked up and you just asked for help. I reached out once and asked for help, and an individual turned up. I turned up to that individual for my first hour session and left, and he said, try to come back with a glass half empty, half full. I've got nowhere to put anything. And I left thinking, well, you haven't fixed me, you give me nothing. Exactly the same cynicism, this skeptical nature. Yeah. And he said afterwards, we spoke a bit afterwards lately, and he said, then you turned up the first time, you were checking me out. There was no recognition. How are you going to fix this kind of thing? And then it sunk in. It was the homework, but it was the work that I did and the work that you've done. And Hamid has just shown you what to do it, and you've accepted it, and you wanted it because you wanted that change. And that was brought on by chaos. Chaos being the element of change, if you like. So chaos caused a disturbance, and that disturbance caused a reach out, and that reach out got you, what you needed, and you wanted it. So you've done the things, and that's what I recognize in all of this, and it's beautiful to see, and the progression. So even down to the Vilci and the other talks with the inner child and the purity of that child inside of yourself, and the knowing that you've got from that Vilci character, which is you. Mm-hmm. And yet your mind still was overriding that simple concepts of purity that Vilci was giving you inside of you. And the mind was saying, no, we'll do this. And now you're sort of recognizing, no, this is much better than that. Yeah. And that's the process, and that's the progress, and that's the beauty of all of this release. I think it's fabulous, brother. And Hamid, I doff my proverbial cap.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And the journey's been fascinating, and yeah, it still has a bit of a strange feeling to me, because I kind of feel like I'm like becoming a channeler of sorts, and I'm going, well, I am, but I'm not. And it was always there. And actually, he said a couple of weeks ago that when he started working with me, even the very, very first session that we had together, he called upon my inner child. And even then, he knows that I was a very wise child. That was a very well-connected child with a greater wisdom. And he said, it's been there right from the beginning. It's a gift. And he didn't say that I hadn't used it, but I realized just by what he was saying, that it's always been there, and I just haven't tapped into it. I haven't allowed myself to really, first of all, I wasn't aware of it, like I wasn't really in touch with it.
Yeah.
But that's I see you having some expressions or some thoughts there. What?
No. I think that we underestimate ourselves
Yeah.
a little bit. I think we do this. This is, again, I'm not knocking anybody for doing it. The society that we were in, that purity and that innocence and that wouldn't have survived in it. That wisdom and all the rest, it wouldn't have survived in it. So it's not that you didn't, it wasn't there. It just couldn't be there. It almost had to be suppressed, if you like. And that's why I think the ego is a beautiful thing for doing that, to maintaining that survival mechanism inside a structure, inside a society that is so alien and inhumane, uncivilized. You can't bring, if you bring in pure civility and pure love into that, it just gets. And I think a lot of us recognize this. The people that have kept that ability, well, very few have. Not most of them. Most of us have had some sort of suppression mechanism put onto that. We call it ego. We call it whatever we want to call it, narcissism, and all these different names of the same thing. It's just suppression of that purity and that innocence and that love and that wisdom. I think we all carry it. But we just got to recognize it in ourselves. So I wouldn't know. I think we underestimate the journey, the journey that we've gone. We go from that purity into that egoic survival mechanism and then back out again, and don't recognize that it's always been there and always will be there and always was a part of us.
Yeah, I liken it to being in a romantic relationship where you run up against certain issues between the two of you, and you cannot see a way out of resolving the issue. And because you're just so close to it that you can't get that perspective. You can't step back far enough to step out of, like, that's the way I felt in the past. Now, each relationship can be different, each circumstance can be different, but I remember very clearly feeling that in one of my earlier relationships, is going, why is she so upset? I don't get it. And, like, I'm not even trying to antagonize her or anything like that. So, but I recognized that I was trying to solve it from here and I couldn't. I was trying to see it from here and I couldn't, and so it was just something that I had to ride through and experience.
Trying to balance chaos. And the majority of that chaos isn't from you. It's just you're trying to balance chaos with everything else. And it's, how do you do that with purity? How do you balance chaos? How do you harmonize stuff when it doesn't want to be harmonized? It's kind of the beautiful thing that you just said about the not seeing from outside in, you're seeing from inside out. And of course, inside out is, I've spoken to this many times about the prison cell. You don't see from outside the prison into where you are. You just see from the cell, and this is safe. I don't want to look out there. This is hard enough to deal with. I totally get it because we've all been through it. Yeah. It's hard enough to balance that chaos and deal with that chaos with all that compromise that has to go on where nobody wins. And everybody's always unhappy and all this. Yeah, okay. It's all in there. Okay. And then you breathe and you can possibly get outside and have a look in and see how hard that was, how much effort it took to maintain a status quo and an equilibrium that was just untenable. It's never going to be maintained. It was only it's all on a string. It's just about to collapse. You're holding on to it so tightly, and it's fascinating. But I think the vast majority of us have experienced this in one way or another. Some people say I've done it differently, but it's all the same thing. And what you just pointed to was that getting outside of that and looking in. Once you get that bigger perspective, and once you see that bigger perspective, once you can keep taking it further and further and further. I don't like to use the word it trivializes this, but over a period of time it does. And you see how trivial this was. You can recognize that to a certain degree. Only trivial in as much as it's highly important in the moment. And as you start to realize and step out of the way, you see it's less important and then gets less important. To maintain that balance is less important. It's less important. This is more important than that. And that kind of perspective puts it in perspective then, rather than trivialize.
Yeah. Well, I get a sense that it, or the phrase that comes to my mind when you share that is, it dissipates the energy around it.
Yeah.
And and all of a sudden, what felt like a really big emotional thing is no longer even that important, and has no emotion at all. And it just, and the only way through it sometimes is just through the journey of the experience.
again, I don't like this duality, mentality, duality stuff. It's not real, but it's real here. So this journey through, yeah, it's, I wouldn't say dissipate. What you just put in there was beautiful. Removes the emotion.
Yeah.
So it takes away the negative emotion. It harmonizes it.
The charge. It reduces the charge, maybe even removes the charge.
Yeah. So emotive. I talk to the energy quite a lot, with the emotion as being the how do we put this? The negative attachment, the negative emotive attachment is a negative one. It's a negative. It's entropic. It dissipates energy, like you just talked about. It doesn't amplify. It sucks in. It's almost like a vortex. And once that's negated neutralized, once that's harmonized, that flows. Now it's just an experience. Now it's just a happening. It's got nothing attached to it. It's just got its lessons, or its blessing, or its experience. That's all it is. It's all of that other stuff's gone. And I sometimes I feel cold saying this. I feel like I should attach an emotion to this to make it sound like it's caring and loving. Of course it is caring and loving, because you take all the beauty out of it now, not the negativity or the feeling of it, or that was awful. These sort of concepts. Why put a pronoun in front of it? Or why put a description in front of it? That was just a happening. That was just an experience. So beautiful, brother, about this, and the recognizing of the emotion and taking the emotion out. I talk to not having skin in the game. Others say, well, I've got this, that. No, I mean, what I mean by having skin in the game is an emotional connection to it. If you haven't got an emotional connection to it, you can observe it. If you have, then you're in it. You're an actor in it. Then you're really involved in it. Then you can win or lose. And then all sorts of other complications come in. But if you're just watching it, okay.
Absolutely. Well, it's so great talking with you. And actually, that's, I think, one of the compelling feelings that I've had as to why I wanted to chat with you is every time in the last year, at least, or the half year, that when I've spoken with you on a Zoom call, unfortunately, most of the time it was unrecorded, and we got into such great conversations. But it's like, I love conversations like this, because everything that one person says feeds into what the next person gets, and then they share that, and then all of a sudden you've got this robust, beautiful, juicy, conversation that could go on and on. I just, the example of you're talking about the vortex, and I was getting a real clear visual, a metaphor, if you will. I was thinking of a bathtub, water, a cork, or the plug in the tub, and the water's just sitting there getting stagnant, getting stinky, right? And you're having a reaction to it, right? But the moment you actually pull the plug, then things start to move. There's the vortex there as things drain out and the energy dissipates, and then it goes away, and then all of a sudden there's nothing there anymore emotionally. So
pure potential left.
Yeah.
With no anything can then go back in the bath, right? When it's full of stagnant water, it's just got stagnant water in it. Now it's empty.
Yep.
Now it's full of creation. Now anything is possible.
Yeah.
But
yeah, how about some Jello? We could throw some Jello in there.
Jello in. You can stick what you want in there, jam. But the chaos had to be caused, if you like, in the old world. I'm not going to say this is the way it's going to be going forward. But chaos is a predetermining factor for change, right? And yet we fight vehemently to stay out of chaos. Mm-hmm. Stuck in the stagnant water and fearful of pulling the plug. What am I going to be if there's no water?
And why does it stink so bad?
Anything you want to be, right? Anything you want to be. No, but that causes that fear. But either way, we're just talking. I'm smiling a little bit about this. Everybody will experience. I still believe micro, macro, all of these things. So what one experiences, everybody does. Mm-hmm. We just don't see it. We don't tend to look for it. So the whole collective is experiencing this, or has experienced this in one way, shape, or another. And it's the same with this ascension, or this movement, this consciousness uplift, this release of negative energies, emotional attachments to what was, is a collective experience. You can deny it. You can say, I'm not having that. I haven't gone through this, that, and I didn't do that. Whatever. That's fine. But in the longer run, when you look back, you'll realize you did. And you're certainly denying it now. So it's the same as the truth that's out at the moment. There's only denying it. It's there. You can only deny it and refuse to see it. So we've talked to this ignorance as a choice. Ignorance is bliss, I agree, but ignorance at this point is a choice. And of course, all of these things are experiential. So you're talking to your experience, I'm talking to my experience. So they are factual to us. They're not somebody else has told us, like a belief system. This is fact.
Yep.
And you say this to somebody else and they look at you like you're mad. Well, it's just fact. You get the concept. You end up a little bit on a limb, and you got to be a little bit worried, not worried. Careful what you say to others. I don't anymore, because I don't really care what they say to me. But that's the process too, of opening up to speak to these things, and speak to. Do you not find that it gives you a sense of a certain sense of extremely powerful vulnerability?
Perhaps I haven't had as much experience of that because I spend so much time by myself. But in those moments when I am talking with someone, even if it's a Zoom call like this, is that when there's that opportunity to share those kinds of things, it opens up things. And yes, absolutely, then there's vulnerability.
Yeah, do you not find the strength in that now rather than the weakness in it, or perceived weakness in it?
I don't think I ever actually realized it until this moment when you said
it. Okay. The purity in it, the innocence that's in it, and the lack of fear of judgment that's in it, because there's nobody who can judge you on this. It's yours.
Mm-hmm.
So that release of that is, for me, when I first started to recognize this, was extremely powerful. Because all of those fears, again, more layers of judgment and what others will think, they were released at the same sort of time. This is my truth. This is what I will give to you, and I'm happy to give it to you. You can do with it what you will. But whereas before, I wasn't really giving my truth. I didn't have that openness to be able to. So that vulnerability wasn't vulnerability. It's not vulnerability. It's perceived.
Yeah.
But that ability to be vulnerable wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, that also explains why that feeling of real enjoyment and sometimes even euphoric feelings of when I'm with someone and we're having this beautiful conversation, and we're just feeding off each other, and I'm going, and it's because I'm allowing myself to be open that they feel permission themselves to feel open. And then it's like a little, speaking of vortexes, it has a nice little energetic loop.
Amplification, I find, is amplified. There's this beautiful word called negentropic. Have you ever heard of that one? I think I may have mentioned it to you before.
I think I heard the word. I don't know if I can give a definition to it, but
it's the opposite of entropy. So entropy is the dissipation or wastage. Mm-hmm. Negentropy is the amplification or growth. So, there's that old one about when two or more come in my name. I'm not going to go into religion because I'm not a big fan of that.
But there's great power there. Yeah, I remember that.
In that openness, in that willingness to give and to share honest love, which is like truth, love, transparency, love. So vulnerability is love to me. It's because you're giving your truth honestly with no fear. So when two or more come in my name of love, if you like, then you get negentropy, amplification, and you feel it. And that is a different gravy. It's a different kind of conversation, a different kind of feeling, right? And
it tastes so good. It tastes so good. Man.
It could be eaten on it. It could be enjoyed on itself by itself. Yeah. But you recognize it, you feel it, right? And you know that, and you can speak to this now as a fact because it's experiential. Mm-hmm. When we do this, it brings that. I choose that, not the old, by experiencing it. You get the point, right? And people want confirmations, and well, there you go. There's your confirmation. You've made that choice, and this tastes great.
Yeah.
This feels good. Let's do some more. Yeah. Of course, then you find people that don't really want to talk about that stuff.
Well, that you bring up a good point, because I'm having a little realization in my mind where I'm going, yeah, I can be openly vulnerable and open with people like yourself who are also openly vulnerable and are willing to share and engage in that rich dialogue. But then my thought said, well, what about, I was thinking my parents, but what about those that just are still protecting that vulnerability and are not comfortable with it and don't know what to do with it? And how are you going to be with people who are that guarded, And I noticed that came to me as a bit of a worry, because then I'm concerned about being vulnerable, and then the entropy, like you say, it loops the other way. and the
Yeah.
gravy all of a sudden starts to get stale and not taste very good.
You're in a position where you don't need to worry about that. That's a question you're asking yourself
Yeah.
without an answer, because it's not something that you have to deal with.
At least not in this moment.
No, and generally, you're not in the public by having to be in the public and dealing with lots of public. I'm not using the word public as an umbrella term. I don't mean everybody's, whatever. But it's your choice was made, if you like, to maintain some sort of hermitage, some sort of recluse nature. Not through any fault, just that's what you're doing. So you're not out there with the people having to guard yourself, or having to protect your vulnerability, or having to protect your love, or feeling that way.
Yep.
So when you do actually go out to meet people and you speak to people, then you can just be you. And what I find with that is that I can just give them love without giving them my whole truth, without speaking of vulnerability. I just am with them.
That's a good point for that. Yeah, that's a good point. I find I have found that if I'm with someone who maybe, I hate to say levels, but doesn't have that same vulnerability, and not in touch with their inner self as much, and they're maybe experiencing challenges, the best thing for me to do is just be with them in a loving way, no judgment, and just be an ear, like, let them share whatever they want to share. And just by doing that, I think it opens a door for them, because then they say, you're so easy to talk to, or it's so nice to have someone actually hear me, listen to me and understand what I'm saying, and not try to fix me. That's the other thing too. I
do fall into that trap every night. Not trap, guidance. I try to give guidance, because I see let's say I see the pain. It's not pain. I see their pain. It's not pain. It's just their experience that they're feeling painful.
Yeah.
And it's like pulling a thorn out of a dog's paw. I just want to pull that thorn out for them, And I realize there's nothing I can do. I can't physically pull the thorn out, but I do have compassion for the pain, or the it's not pain. Let's get the right words, Lee. Or their experience in this moment. It could be different. It could be different if they saw it differently, but they're experiencing it as they would, as their path is. And and we know that there are some relatively easy fixes. So I offer them, and over a period of time, people have stopped talking to me.
Okay. Well, but that's just it. I think the key word to me and what you just said was the word offer. Is if you're saying, oh, you need to do this, or you're doing it in a way that you're kind of putting it on them, or you should do this, or guilt tripping. That's a form of guilt tripping, the way I see it, or just the way it landed with me. But if you're just saying, here's the thought I had, you might want to try this if you haven't already tried it. Just offering it to them, giving them the choice to take the thorn out of their paw or not, and going from there.
Perspective, yeah. So give a different perspective. So what I try to do is give a larger perspective to make the problem smaller.
Yeah.
Of course, I also recognize that those that tried to give me a larger perspective when I was younger didn't get treated very well by me. So why would I expect anything different now?
You know what they say about karma now. You know what they say about karma.
There's the offer with it, but when I was dealing with it before, I was being told what to do, and I make sure that I don't do that now. I just give the perspective, like you say, offer it, because I recognize in my past how I reacted to those, and I won't, do that now to somebody else. But I will proffer a suggestion or a perspective.
Yeah.
So in those moments, there's no fear in that. I just choose to maintain a level of harmony. So I generally find that dealing with those that are in chaos, or moving towards chaos, or holding chaos at bay, create generally disharmonics through that fear spectrum of whatever that fear may be it pride, be it anger, be it shame, guilt, all the rest. So I recognize it. There's nothing I can really do it's their journey. So do I need to be a part of it? Do I need to be around that chaos? Do I need to be around that disharmonics? Can I do it from a distance? Mm-hmm. So I chose to do it from a distance, brother. Yeah. and that's the way it is for now.
A safe distance, yeah.
Yeah, it's safe. But I hugely anticipate a massive change in the not too distant in the collective consciousness. when that is. We've been speaking to this for a long time too. I don't know. Until then, it's just day by day by day by day. And having conversations with beautiful brothers like you, and where everything's opening up and keeping an eye on what's going on, and out of all of that chaos with just harmony. That's my choice for now, until the time comes when that changes again. Let's just fingers crossed. I don't know about you, but I find as well that the chaos that causes the change is necessary, or the change is not necessary. The changes that we go through, the changes that we've chosen, becomes less chaotic. The change is less difficult to accept than it used to be. So where we may have needed quite a chaotic push, nudge, however you want to see it, in the past to make a different decision, they become a little bit easier later as you accept and surrender and become just sort of more flow, rather than trying to fight to stay in that bubble. Okay, I'm doing this now. I'm going that way now. Okay.
Yeah.
You may not be there yet with all of that, but I think you're right.
Getting there. In listening to you, I was tempted to put a question out to the audience. For anyone that goes back far enough and have watched the old Bob Hope, Bing Crosby movies, you may remember that they were notorious for, at different times in the movie, actually getting out of character and speaking directly to the audience, which was very unusual for that time. And even for today, I think it's still the same story. But I felt like I wanted to ask the audience, how many out there, show of hands, love being told what to do by someone else? We've all had the experience, but how many actually love that? Unless you're really dependent and have surrendered completely your own, choice, willpower, power, I would say most people probably don't like it. I'm hazarding a guess, but I'm thinking that a lot of people don't like being told what to do by anybody outside of themselves. So just interesting.
Depends what they're doing, I suppose. If your job, not in a job sense. I presume you're talking in a day-to-day emotional state and living.
Well, even in a job, they may have to take other people's direction, but they may not like it, but they have to deal with it or accept it or work with it or whatever they do. But yeah, I was thinking more personal.
IROC is an interesting one. We were speaking about GPMS the other day with myself and Rick, and I'm constantly saying that there's no hierarchy in GPMS and this, that, and the other. And Rick said to me, he said, "Well, Lee, you're making it sound like there's no structure." Yeah, damn, you can see it that way too. If I say there's no hierarchy, it sounds like there's no structure. When there's roles and positions, and I think we've got that same thing in life, when we look around, people just accept roles and positions. They don't need authority and power or a title with it. It's just, you do what you do. So if somebody's seen as somebody that can give advice and tell somebody what to do, then they may get sought out by those that need to be told. And it's left at that. Those that don't need to be told, don't go and see that individual. But this is where the choices come in, right? So again, there's nothing wrong with telling somebody what to do, should that individual want that or wish that. Yeah. But generally, I think we tend to tell people regardless of what they want or how it will be received.
I think I would. I'm not even sure what the word is. I think it's doff your hat, or like when you tip your hat.
Doth. I thought it was doth. D-O-T-H. Doth.
Doth. Okay. Doth. Yeah, and I was thinking D-O-F, but yeah, D-O-T-H makes sense.
Or it's doth to put it on. I doth a cap. Tip. It's tip. Doth maybe to put on. Dothing a cap maybe to wear. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I tip my cap then to the elitists, the people in the world who created this structure that we were all indoctrinated into, because that is what perpetuates that feeling of somebody tell me what to do, because I don't have any idea of what we're supposed to do. That word "supposed to" has become a very strong word in the English language, I think, that phrase. What am I supposed to do? Is this right? Is this wrong? And I know for many years in my life, and this was from the Catholicism actually, where I was thinking, if I do this or if I behave in this way, will God love me? Is this a right way of being with someone or not? You're looking up the word, aren't you?
I've got to look up the word, and it's not doth. Not doth. Doth is death of field, but doth means to do something. So I do my cap.
Okay. I do my cap. Okay.
I do my cap, brother. I do my cap. Oh, Queen doth strictly charge and command all manner of. Okay. Yeah, I doff my cap, whatever that means. I'll do the actions so people know. And I've said this for a while, brother, about what you just said. The level of control, the level of subversion, the level of manipulation is phenomenal, relative. Now they've had many years to come up with these plans, but the extremes of deception are. But once what's seen cannot be unseen. So now it's been a cheat has been called, and the hand is full of 6 aces, and there's only 4 in the pack, guys.
Don't you find now too, though, a lot of the spiritually liberated, if I can call it that, because I don't know how else to call it, people that have, like, for example, channels on YouTube and that kind of thing, that they're kind of saying that it's the world is discovering that, and because the world is discovering that, there's this upheaval of all the darkness, all the heavy stuff, all the energies that look ugly, that don't feel nice, that don't feel good. Some people call it evil, for that matter, or darkness, or that kind of thing. But have you not noticed that too, that there is a lot of this sort of uprising of this kind of energy?
Huge, and it's being interpreted in many different ways, from negative darkness to evil to demonic to all sorts of different ways. What is it really? Again, a lot of people, because the information isn't out there and the truth isn't out there, a lot of us are walking in the dark, fumbling around, with bits of information, and then other sets of information that's a belief from somewhere else. And of course, demonics and evil, very real in the imagination. And I'm not saying they're not real, but we do. I have noticed and recognized that there's a lot of others' belief that it's there without experience. They don't know, but they believe, right? So again, with your interpretation a little bit earlier of the bathwater, in that bathwater, you may have sediment on the top, a crust, if you like, and then underneath at the bottom, you may have some silt. And Of course, when you pull the plug, everything gets churned up. And that's what's happening in the collective. You've got that vortex going, that chaos going, that release, that ascension, that apocalypse. Many different belief systems and truths that are causing chaos in the underbelly of the collective, and that's stirring up all the shit and the muck, if you want to see it as that. And that's allowing that to come to the surface, to be realized, to be recognized, to be seen, right? What's underneath the bathwater, you can't really tell at the bottom until it's surfaced, right? So it's coming to the surface to be released and seen for what it is. Smeg. It's useless. It's stuff. It's slime. It doesn't need to be there. It could do with a clean, right? So I think if you look at it like that, the collective is just having a cleanse of the negative. So we're talking to solar flashes over the last few days, and this great big flash theory, and this, that, and the other. And yeah, okay, it's another belief system that's there. But for me, one of the interesting aspects is the human experience will be maintained. So if there's a big solar flash and everything's all of a sudden shifted, how does the human experience be maintained? I agree, his story will have to be rewritten because it's full of deceit. But it can be rewritten by humanity without this big lump in the middle necessarily, or unnecessarily, however it works, whereby a big solar flash shifts humanity's consciousness and releases the dark energies from them, or the deeper, denser energies, their own anger, fear, and shame, in an instant. I don't know, but there's a lot of people talking to this flashpoint. Can it happen? Yes, absolutely. Anything's a possibility. Is it likely to? I don't know. Because will it cause a fundamental change in the human experience? Is there going to be a fundamental change in the human experience when what has happened is recognized? Yes. But that change will be, in my mind, brought about by humanity uniting and choosing it. We'll see this in the long run. This is only philosophy with some concepts inside my mind about certain things that must stay baseline: free will, non-interference, and maintaining the human experience, the playground. So there's all of these things that are coming into that alternative spiritual communities, but of course it's all being brought in from outside influence and outside influencers saying these things are going to happen. Are they? And then people put belief on they will. All right, well, this will happen then, and then everybody's going to be free.
Mhm.
Okay. So what was the last 2 years about then? Why didn't it happen then? Or what was 10 years ago? Why didn't it happen then? It doesn't make, what's this bit for if that's going to happen? It's pointless, because that it could have just happened and we didn't need this bit then, because if we don't have to do anything, if there's no unity or collective choice to change, and there's just a flick of a switch, then why experience this last little bit? These sort of questions come up, but again, I don't want to go too far into that because it's philosophy.
Yeah, it is. I don't mind playing with it a little bit, but okay. I remember our last Dow call a week ago today, and I was starting to, I think it was like just by talking out loud, because sometimes I learn really well just by talking, and all of a sudden little realizations come through. But I was saying perhaps there isn't a singular capital T truth for all, that rather it's a lot of individual truths, because we all have our own context, our own belief systems, our own ways of looking at things, our own ways of, because I look at it as you and I could look at an event or something that happens within and through the filter of our own belief systems and interpret it somewhat differently. There would be commonalities, most likely, because we do share, common things. But there's also some unique differences that we would probably have. And then there might be the guy that is a miracle faith healer through their church, who would interpret the same event differently again, but inside the context of how they see it. And so a lot of times what will happen as an event, people will have their own rose-colored glasses on that they will be seeing through and interpreting from. So I don't know, like, that's just a question I would say. I don't know if there's ever going to be a universal truth where everyone believes the same thing, but but there could be a sense of peace or calmness within each individual because they interpret it in their own way, and there's a groundedness to them, for them, in the way they've seen it.
Perfect. And each individual's true, everybody's truth is their truth. It's perfect. What most people don't realize is that their truth and somebody else's truth can be different and both be the same, both be real, both be true. Then doesn't make one wrong and one right, but that's what we always put in, well, you're wrong because it's this. Okay. But when you get to that little word, and it's a beautiful word, acceptance, in the lower parts of the love spectrum, if you want, but that's above the fear. Acceptance that another may see things differently, and it's okay. It's not wrong. So acceptance takes away or starts to chip at that judgment. You could do it better if you do it this way. Okay, grand, thank you. Let it go. But the aspects of truth, it's fascinating, and it's one of those things that we don't agree on. I've said this before. We should, in a lot of ways, we should agree at a baseline truth that we can both agree on as a common ground. So can we agree that, and I want to talk about GPMS quite a lot, can we agree that sovereign above authority is a baseline? And we start
I could certainly agree to that, but would everyone? I don't know.
No. So again, then we can set the baseline for where we can start. So we agree at this point. Now, our truth doesn't matter from there on upwards, because we're agreeing to start from that point. What we're not doing is going down below it. So we can agree to this. Can we agree for equality for all? Is every soul equal?
Yeah.
Or not? If we're not, let's have a discussion about it. We can talk about it. But can we agree to it? Because if we can, then we don't need to worry about that discussion, and we can just move forward. So with the universal truth, it's an interesting one, because for my aspect, the universal truth, certainly in the physical representation of what we are, we can go into that in a minute if you wish, would be true for all. So universally true, as opposed to individually, perspective wise. So with humanity as it stands, there's so many lies out there that very few have got access to any truth. You're just grasping for it and you're reaching for it or something like this. They've got their personal truth, experiential truth. Is the world flat or round? What does it matter? It doesn't matter, but let's create a big division by, you think it's round, oh, you're a globalist and you're a flat earther. Okay, so massive division. Is there separation? When we're both stood on the ground, right? The ground is here, it's flat, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Can we agree that it doesn't matter? Or are we going to use that as a separation, in the grander scale of things, we'll know. And that truth will be evident, right? And it'll be universal. But at the moment, it's not. At the moment, it's up for debate. But there is a universal truth there, right? We just don't know it yet, categorically, factually. We can guess. So I think a lot of these things that come down to that universal truth, the law of one stuff is, one truth. It doesn't matter where you are in the universe. People may say, well, there's nowhere outside of this and we've got problems with space, and okay, whatever. We'll find out in the long run. It's not going to cause a division, but that truth must remain the same wherever you are. And if you allow for the laws of physics to change dependent on which representation of what universe you're in, then physics doesn't remain fixed. Okay, so then you get into energy. Okay, now we're going to go into energy. Can you remove any? Can you destroy energy? No. Okay, so energy can't be destroyed. Great, we've got a truth. Right? We've got a truth. At this point, energy can't be destroyed. It just changes into different shapes, forms, molecules, and goes back. Wonderful. So we can agree on that. Everything else is perspective. Can we agree that it seems, do you get what I mean? So it's this acceptance, I think, and this willingness to accept somebody else's truth as not fighting you. It's not having a go at you. It's not calling you stupid or anything else. It's just their truth.
Yeah.
Let's discuss it. Let's have a debate about it. Let's give some perspectives. And if you're not open to it, so be it. Love you. Bye.
Oh, it's so cool. That's so cool. I mean, I when I don't know, I'm very happy now. I'm much more comfortable now to be able to say, I don't know. Yeah. But, even with what you just shared, there was that little playful part of me that said, okay, lowest common denominator, we have the ground. And then I'm going, but there's always that one person in the crowd that says, but you can go underground, or you can go below ground, or you can, and they can dig further. And the same thing with, a cell, for example, that at first we thought it was the electrons and the protons, and then we thought it was atoms, and it seems as though every time they look deeper, when they have the ability to, there's something else there. The scientists or whatever, the researchers that do this kind of thing. So I'm not opposing you again, but no, I'm also saying I just hold this feeling of, if there's the lowest common denominator that we can agree on, that's wonderful. That's great. And we can work from there, and I get that. But at the same time, maybe there isn't one as well. And I'm open to that possibility as well.
We can agree to one, whether there be one or not.
Yeah.
If we can't find one, then so be it. Yeah. Again, with a lot of this, it's acceptance. Whereas I've spent so many years, I was a teacher for a long time, and you've got to get information into people. So you kind of force a square peg into a round hole most of the time because people don't want it, right? So you try and shave the edges off it and try to create that, as best you can, get the information in. Now I'm much more relaxed on this.
You never notice how ugly that looks when you shave off the edges? It didn't quite fit right.
Got a big hammer. I used to have a big hammer and a lot of ego with it as well. Oh no, I'm not even going to say that. It was just what it was. But the aspects to it are agreement. This is the agreement and acceptance. Even if we can't find a common denominator. And I do find that the human mind loves the exemption for the rule. But so we get a principle in principle and then try to undermine it via an exemption. It doesn't undermine the principle. You've just found a kind of small thing that you can dig into to try to undermine the principle. Is God love? Is there harmony in the universe? Is there a God? Is there energy? Is there all these things? Okay. You don't have to believe there is. You don't have to believe that if you don't want to, so be it. We're not going to go very far with the conversation if we don't move into that area, but that's fine. I'll go and speak to somebody else. Or nobody, nobody at all. Yeah. But once you start looking into molecules and molecular stuff, and you start to understand or overstand or whatever the fucking words are nowadays, I just use intention, right? The intention word is pure, not legalese Black's dictionary. But once you start to look into these things and you see molecular creation, you see toroidal fields, you get some information about the ether, some information about the energy that we're in, not in. You get the soul aspect of what we are, a soul having a human experience as opposed to a human. Where's the soul? What's the soul? These sort of concepts go in. Where would that soul be? What is God? What's all the part of one? What does that mean? All in the one and one in the all. How does that work? Well, once you start to cajole that and you use all these concepts that come in and these, then you start to look at creation, or this physical representation we are. And how does that work? And these sort of concepts and atomism. So we look into atomism and this atomistic viewpoint, and electrons, protons, and neutrons. And the atom, by definition, must have an electron, proton, and neutron, because that's what makes up an atom. But then when you look at this other stuff, there is no such thing as an electron, proton, and a neutron. So therefore, the atom is undefined too. It's just a molecule. Okay, so now we've got electron, protons, and neutrons, which are necessary for an atom. And all of science seems to be atomistic. And that's what they teach. Now, physically, there is something that looks like it could be a positive charge and a negative charge and a neutral in the middle. But that doesn't need to be an electron, proton, and a neutron. It could be something else. And when you look into molecular toroidal field energies, it answers a lot of that. But again, this is too far. This goes too far. Then you look into, okay, of the ether. So we're of, no, like an iceberg. This is a great one from Ken the other day. Icebergs. We say the iceberg is in the water. It's not. It's of the water. An iceberg is water. It's water of water. It's just ice. And we say it's in. So this representation of this physical representation is of the ether. It's not in it. We're of it, where everything is energy. Of course, you can then start to see where this is going, because everything is energy. All everything that we have, wow, everything vibrates, everything's got frequency, everything is energy. Well, where's that energy coming from? Oh, it's the food we eat. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's the sun. But so there's more to this. And you start to look into that, and then you start to get into the what I call a physical representation of the non-manifest, or non-manifest manifest, holographic representations. How can it be holographic when we're physical? When you look at ultra high frequency light, folds into itself and creates a molecule. They've done this with lasers and mirrors, high powered lasers, ultra high frequency lasers bouncing off mirrors, and all of a sudden you've got high power light or ultra high frequency light that turns into molecular structure. It turns into hydrogen. Hydrogen is the base molecule. So ultra high frequency light becomes matter, or what people call hard light or frozen light. So an iceberg in the water is frozen water, right? The water's fluid, but then you've got this structure in it. The physical body or matter is frozen light in the ether. It's ultra high frequency light. That's, again, is that true? I don't know. Does it make more sense than atomism? Oh, hell yeah. Because it allows for infinity. It takes away limitation. It allows for everything as a possibility, and infinite possibilities and infinite universes. Atomism brings it back down into limitation and individuality and smallness and tininess and ridicule and all of these things. You go into the other side of it, opens up into everything's possible. So again, it's like, but I'm openly just stating this as stories. I don't know it for a fact, but I know inside of me that makes more sense than the atomistic viewpoint. And Darwin, Louis Pasteur, Pasteur and Antoine Béchamp. Beauchamp makes more sense than pasteurization, germ theory. Terrain theory makes more sense than germ theory. Free energy makes more sense than burning frigging coal. And electrical creation, the creation of electricity doesn't happen. What do we turn into electricity? We haven't got egg flour and sugar and we turn it into a donut. It's not like we take something and make electricity out of it. You spin something and electricity is manifested. It's not, you don't turn coal into electricity. It turns into heat, which turns something, which spins magnets, and the magnets churn up the ether, and the ether torsion manifests electricity, because electricity is the universe. It's the hybrid. This is what Tesla was speaking to, and Steinmetz and all these other guys in the 1800s were speaking to an electrical universe. We're not allowed to think about that if we speak to atomism. It denies all of that. If you speak to atomism, atomism denies the ether.
To me, it feels as though there's almost a danger in limiting yourself to just one way of looking at things. Yeah. I must admit that my ego is feeling very stroked right now, in the sense that for many years I've sort of maintained the attitude, and I never knew why, but I maintained the attitude that I don't know. But in a way of, I don't know if something is right or wrong. And it's okay that I don't know that it's right or wrong. It doesn't have to be right or wrong. And I don't have to have an opinion about it. I've had people tell me, oh, you've got to have an opinion about something, and I'm going, for the most part, and a lot of things I don't, and I'm okay with that. And it kind of boggles, it boggles some people's minds, how can you not have an opinion about something? So, but I just love it.
Why do you need an opinion? Isn't telling somebody they must have an opinion on something a judgment? Isn't that just a projection of your own?
Yeah, an opinion is a judgment, a conclusion of some sort, and then you make a judgment on that. So
I've got opinions, so you must have them. Otherwise, if I've got them and you haven't, then I'm doing something. No, you must have them too to make this. You've got to be the same as me. No, you haven't.
You got to fit in my box because it's my box, and I can't understand it if it's not in my box.
This is the acceptance thing, as you come in, having no fixed opinion on anything allows for ultimate creation because they've got nothing in there that's stopping it.
Yeah.
Having fixed beliefs on something means there's nowhere to go.
I think it's fascinating personally. The more I see this, the more I want to not have, commitments or beliefs in certain things being true, because then I can see things more objectively without restriction, and like, I'll give you an example is I like to watch a large variety of different videos on YouTube from different, I'll call it genres because I don't know what the right word is, but for example, the US political system, I'll watch videos on that. I'll watch videos on aliens and extraterrestrial beings. I'll watch videos on spirituality. I'll watch videos on conspiracies, and I enjoy watching all of them. But what I notice is that there's a lot of conflicting beliefs and thoughts across all of those different genres, and forgive me for probably using the wrong word, but that's just what I'm using for now.
You're good.
Yeah, and but yeah, but what I notice by keeping an open mind and keeping myself from saying, oh no, the spiritual people got it down, they know exactly what's going to happen, because it discounts the rest, and then all of a sudden I limit myself. But
you're allowing for change. Allowing for change.
I'm allowing for change. I'm allowing to see things from a different perspective. I'm allowing to see how, and it's cool too, because then I start to see commonalities, and I'm seeing more and more of that across the different genres. And that to me gets me excited, because I'm going, well, if they're saying this in the political scene and they're talking about this in the spiritual scene, and even the ET believers, are talking about that in their realm, then there might be, more of a chance that could be real, if I can call it that. I don't even know, that doesn't even feel right to say it that way.
Tangible.
Yeah,
it
tangible.
becomes more likely.
Yeah.
So possibility and likelihood comes in, because now it's sort of like multiple confirmation. Even though sometimes we look for confirmation bias, it still becomes more of a possibility. This isn't as far out there as it might be just from that one individual. There's loads of different perspectives on the same thing, and therefore it becomes a little bit more tangible. Now, where does that fit into my story? And what I have noticed, William, is that you do this a lot. Again, we've spoken about this many times, and I know what you keep an eye on, kind of, but you don't form opinions and beliefs based on them. You haven't fallen into the trap of that story is true and now it's mine, and I need to know more about it from others. You haven't fallen down that. A lot of us have gone down, you may have done, don't get me wrong, but you haven't brought it up and it hasn't stayed with you as your paradigm.
Yeah.
It's been malleable enough to be released into something else. Or go on.
The cool thing that I want to say about that is that there are moments definitely where I say, oh, that feels true. That feels right. I believe that. And then, but I won't discount everything else. And then I'll watch a different genre, and all of a sudden they'll say something, and then it releases the feeling I had a moment ago about the other thing of saying that that's right. And so it's like, by watching all of the different kinds of genres, it keeps me more honest, if you will. It keeps me having to keep a broader view and keep more of an open mind. And I think that's been for me. It's been beneficial for me to do it that way, because then I can see, I know that even a few months ago, I probably would have not ever allowed myself to do Vilce thing in the way I do it, by closing my eyes and going, this is weird. I'm feeling like a channel, and that's too spooky for me, and that's weird, and all that kind of stuff. Now I just do it, and I do it. It's like, and I'm amazed by it, because I'm amazed that there is wisdom there. And I had another visit yesterday where I spent some time, and it's totally conscious. I choose when I want to do this, and it makes sense to do it often for me because I get such value from it. But I was afraid of going in because it had been a week since I had done it the previous time, and I was afraid that I was going to lose that connection to the wisdom, and or there wasn't going to be any wisdom there, right? That's the other thing. Well, it's all coming from me, right? So the wisdom is going to be gone. I've said all the
how did you lose it? Where's it going to go?
Yeah. So, and then yet yesterday I still had a wonderful experience, and it was amazing, and it was, I can't wait to share it now with everyone. But I need to, hone it down and make it palatable so it's not too long and all that kind of stuff.
Length, brother. People who listen to it for as long as it takes. I'm not worried too much about this 10-minute snippet because people's attention spans. It gets to who it gets to. It's fascinating. But we're talking to the malleability, the not pinning it on something and not having to be fixed. What does it matter? And this is the beauty of it. If you can release, what does it matter? I think this today, and I think that tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, you were saying that yesterday, you hypocrite. No, okay, that's your judgment. Whatever.
I changed my mind.
I'm allowed to change, right? And you were fixed on. You said these dates, and it never happened. Okay,
yeah.
Blame me if you want. Blame whatever. I don't blame myself. I've forgiven myself for all of these errors of judgment or whatever they were. No, they weren't even errors. What they were was learning. Experiential learning. It was just like, at this moment, I thought that was true. And I said that. In the future now, having done that and had the effect of it, I won't be doing that again.
And sometimes those things have a piece of where you are now still, like they've contributed or lent to something as well. So sometimes it's not just turning it on and off either. It could be much more intertwined.
Stepping stones. They're all connected. If you hadn't done that, you wouldn't do this, and and that was really bad. I made a mistake. Yeah, but if you hadn't have done it, you wouldn't have been there. So it wasn't a mistake. It was perfect. It was such a negative environment outcome. No, it wasn't. It was perfect because it got you to here again. Yeah. So we're so self-critical of these things, and we judge ourselves so harshly. In general, my friend said to me a couple of 3 years ago. He said, "Just be kind to yourself," and those words, they are so powerful on so many different levels. Be kind to yourself. Yet we don't practice that in general. We practice the complete opposite. We are severe, we are harsh, we are the mind, our own ego is our biggest conspiracy theorist against us. And it knows exactly what buttons to press to put us into fear and anxiety. And it does it beautifully, right?
Yeah.
And so we're savage to ourselves. And yet we talk of all these other things in general, again, not as you recognize it and realize it, you release all that need to cut yourself open every day. But that's what we do, and it's kind of funny to look at. And it's once you recognize it, you see it for what it is, and you see the beauty in it. Even if it wasn't a pleasant experience in memory, you get past that into, I see the benefit of that. I see how that benefited me so much now, that I can't have a negative attachment to it. I couldn't possibly, because it created this, pulling the plug out. Don't pull the plug out the water. And then at the end of it, you see how clean it all is, and you go, "Thank you." Yeah, I realized how good pulling that plug out was, but Jesus, at the moment, it didn't seem good.
Yeah, when that vortex was getting big, boy, I don't know, man. I was getting pretty scared.
Yeah. But look what happened at the end of it, and we've talked about this many times, right? Where we approach things with fear, and then nothing goes wrong. And all of the things that the mind comes up with doesn't happen. And yet then the next time we come up against something like that, we do the same thing.
Yeah.
It makes me chuckle. But what's seen cannot be unseen.
Yeah.
And you know this now, William, you're testament to this. You can speak experientially to this, even if we, not just you, even if we all still get into those modes or those moments of that, we still know that they're not real. Hold on. Even if it feels real, right? Even if it feels, the emotion comes up and this, and the stories are going on. Okay, it's not real. Come on. We can just get on. But having done it many, many times where that didn't happen, and it felt so real for a period of time that seems elongated now, for what seems to be months and years of this stuff.
Yeah.
Really, it was just, yeah, get through this.
Funny story I want to share. I had a session with Hamid on this past Friday, and I shared with him an observation I had earlier this week prior to that meeting with him. And I don't know, I was probably just sitting on my couch or enjoying the sunrise coming through my back window behind me here. And it just occurred to me in that moment, I was feeling very calm, and I'm going, I'm not feeling at all panicked, at all fear. I'm feeling this calm state. And yet the circumstances of my life are still pretty much exactly as they were 2 months ago, when I was freaking out and having a miserable time and wondering, life is going to end, and what am I going to do, and where am I going to live? I'm going to be out on the street and all of that kind of stuff. Circumstances are still pretty much the same. Very little has changed, but my energy around it and the way I am with it have changed. And I thought, that is amazing. That is amazing, because I wasn't afraid. And it was also something that is still, based on something that needs to happen or will happen in the future, but I don't know what that's going to look like. But that's the future. That's not now. Yeah. So I just told myself, well, you'll deal with it when you get there, whatever it looks like.
Can't control what's outside of you. You can only control what's within.
Yep.
So, and we've spoken to it, very, very real how much that churning goes on inside, right? And it's very, but you have a choice as to whether to experience that or experience peace. And you recognize this now. It might not be a flick of a switch. You may have to, there may be a little bit of a journey progression in what was to get to that point, but it's still a choice. So now you're at peace on the inside, knowing that everything outside is chaotic. Bring it on.
Yeah.
It can't disturb that peace should you wish that peace to remain. The only way that peace can be disturbed is if you choose to disturb it by allowing chaos on the inside.
Yeah.
It's not fun, chaos on the inside. It's unnecessary. It doesn't feel great. It's quite perturbing. So I've experienced quite a lot of it. I don't wish to anymore. And you're probably in the same, I think a lot of us are in the same boat. So I choose not to have the chaos on the inside. I choose peace, regardless of what goes on out there. And regardless of what that does for me, to me, or whatever, whatever changes may happen in my outside circumstance, I'll maintain that peace on the inside. Thank you. And that even that concept is so simple, yet and I know it's not that simple when you add in all of the other processes that go on, the programming and the subconscious and all of the stories and the conspiracy theories that you tell yourself, and the emotional impact it has, and this feeling, even though they're pseudo, they're not real.
Well, I do have one belief that I can say that I feel for sure that comes to mind right now, and that I believe the body does have a memory. Like our bodies do have memory. We store things there if we don't express them or don't let them through, and we'll compartmentalize, and it'll end up in our body. And there are times when I will feel this panicky, fear, stressful, chaotic state and not even know why. Like the logical side of it is gone. It's like, I don't know why, but it feels like it just needs to express. It needs to come out, and unfortunately, I need to feel it. So it's not always fun. So sometimes for me, it's not even I don't, just by saying consciously, I choose not to have this anymore, doesn't necessarily work in that moment. That stuff will still flow through. So I'm going to accept that. I'm just going to have to deal with that and be with that as it comes up in the moment. But just some of the people that I follow, they talk about, your body has a memory, and the best thing to do is to just let it come through you.
Yeah, I agree with you about I'm just going to say this anyway. I'll just say my truth regardless. There's a lot of, I'm going to use the word collective transmutation, or transmuting of the morphogenetic collective field. So sometimes the collective energies will come through, the ones that are relatively pure, if you like, to release through. So in those moments when There's nothing obviously chaotic in, that's not my thoughts. I can recognize it's not me. Okay, I'm doing something for others, and I let it go. Just release it. I realize this isn't me. Okay, it may not be great, but nevertheless, it's something that is happening. So let it happen. Don't pin anything onto it. So I think I can talk to that with this. I don't think that's prevalent to others, but I know a lot will have experienced it in the collective, transmuting for the collective. When you speak to the body holds the energy, I don't disagree. I just have a different perspective. The energetic field, which is the body, holds the energy, right? We see it, the body holds the energy, great. But then you're talking to physicality. I talk to the non-physical, the non-manifest. I talk to the energy, so a little bit more. So the physical field holds those energies, the negative attachments that we put to them. Mm-hmm. Only the negative attachment is holding. As I said to many people, your experiences that you hold on to as negative aren't happened and never happened to anybody else. They don't exist. They're in the past. But to you, they're very real in the present, in your field, spinning and spinning and spinning negatively, and you're the only one that remembers it. You're the only one that remembers it, and it's spinning negatively. So you've got a negative spin or entropic spin on your energies inside your field. And when you neutralize them, harmonize them, let them flow, then it becomes a field, it becomes a flow, it becomes clean again. These sort of aspects. And so we can look at, I've had many, many people do believe, and whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter, that energies were held in their body and it caused them physical disharmony. It's in my body, it's of me. Okay, we'll cut the energy out then and take it, it's harmonizing the energy, neutralizing it, and then it flows. So I speak to that rather than it being in the body as a physical representation of anything, but nevertheless, it may manifest physically.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that actually a lot.
There's a lot. Going deeper. Go on.
I was going to say something that you touched on tweaked something for me. And I know that like I follow Kyle Cease and he's got a network of people, and a lot of times on his calls, he has calls once a week with people calling in and that kind of thing. And sometimes he'll work one-on-one with a person, like right on a Zoom call on camera, and they'll deal with something that's up in their lives, because usually it's about a problem that individual is experiencing. And they'll go through something, and very often he'll be able to help them to trigger some sort of a release. And at the very end of that, he'll often say, you've just allowed not only to heal yourself, but that same energy with a whole bunch of the different viewers without you even knowing it. And that speaks more to what you were just saying, is there's more of a collective thing side of it as well, that sometimes you're not even carrying that energy, whether it's in your body or in your energy field or in a collective energy field. It may not even be your experience even from this lifetime. It could be carried over from, if you're into lifetimes and all that kind of stuff.
It's fine. Again, beliefs,
yeah.
Incarnations and all the rest of it, carrying this thing through karma.
Yeah. But wherever that energy is held, let's put it that way. And it's come from somewhere, and we don't always know where. But the cool part is that someone else can experience the release of that, whatever is been held down, and can liberate not only themselves, but other people who may have been holding on to that energy too. I like that as well.
That's, for me, one of the universal truths. It's the micro macro. It's the balancing. It's the harmonizing of energy. If you sway a bell that way, if you sway something that way, it'll come back the other. It's this. There's a mathematical, geometric symmetry, if you like, in what I look at and what I see and in the harmony of this in music. There's a symmetry in music. There's geometry in it. There's mathematics in it. But it's music. Yeah, but it's the same thing, right? So the micro macro thing is very, very interesting, where we kind of dismiss our experience could be bigger for all. We don't micro macro things generally. So if you're transmuting energy, or I am for the collective, then so are millions of others. It's not, it's not just this one thing, and it's not special. It's just there's a need, and you're the one, and you do it, and then it's them, and then it's them, and this is for the collective, for all. So as we release and as we harmonize and as we simplify, this is another one. simplifying the complexity. As we consciously simplify through conversation the complexities of what was, we simplify that for the collective. So now the complexity is being released in the collective morphogenic field, whereby others then can just go straight through, if you like, in their own experience to a simpler outcome without the complexity, because it's already been done. Again, these sort of concepts don't tend to be spoken about generally, but factually for me, because how can it not be? It doesn't make sense unless it's that. You know, it can be no other way. These for me, these give me the simplest truths for me. It can be no other way. So how can it not be the truth then? Or the, you know, with a capital T, as opposed to a perspective truth. If it can be no other way and we can agree on that, then let's call that the truth. You know, again, if you believe it can be a different way, sweet, let's discuss it. Let's look at the pros and the cons of what you perceive, you know, and we'll see. And if we don't agree, so what? It doesn't matter.
Gee, I think I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah,
I think it was a GPMS video that I saw somewhere.
the way I don't know. I saw my concepts are dead straightforward: equality and freedom. You know, these sort of things. So I see the beauty in your truth, even if I don't agree with it. Fine, you know, again, I'm not going to argue, I'm not going to discuss it. My perspective is slightly different. I don't want to change yours unless you're willing to change it yourself, you know, and I'm willing to change any of mine. Give me new evidence, give me something else that takes me somewhere else and opens up another door that allows it to extrapolate further, and I'm straight there, thank you. But if it doesn't go that way, if it becomes entropic, love you, bye.
Well, the other thing that just occurred to me too is that if we go into that place of, Lee, I think all your beliefs are wrong, and that, you know, great, yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing what you believe in, and that you don't agree with me, but it doesn't. It basically closes the door from any further conversation. Really, there's nothing else to talk about, because all of a sudden you've closed that door. There's no opportunity for you know, growth or being able to see something differently, or at least allowing you the opportunity to see a different perspective, which is yeah, because you said the word and that's what I thought.
Everything with us. There's another one. I mean, I love philosophy on the infinite. I love philosophizing about releasing limitation. So we speak to things and it creates a limitation. Therefore, in my mind, that there's a problem with that, because it limits what can be. So it's great, you know, extrapolating linear time. This is the reality, and this is what we're facing, and through experience, then this is probably what's likely to come next. Okay, great, yeah, I get that. But what about allowing for infinite possibility with it? We can put that in there, even though it may not happen. So there's this thing about the conceived. I think I've said this to you. I'm not quite sure, but for anything that we can conceive, as soon as we can conceive it, by definition, it must be limited, because the inconceivable can happen at any given time. And we've had many things that were inconceivable happen whilst we conceived a certain thing, and then the inconceivable happens, right? Well, therefore, there's always inconceivable, and in the inconceivable is the possibilities. In the conceivable is definition and limitation. Does that make any sense to you? So if we can conceive of it, it kind of creates a limitation. We've got to allow for it to go into the inconceivable, which defies logic, or suspends logic, not defies it, suspends logic. Suspend logic for a little bit and allow it to go into, does this allow for the inconceivable to happen, or does it limit the possibility of that? So again, a lot of these concepts come in for me, and I just look, is there an inconceivable outcome to this? And does it allow for that? Because if it doesn't, then it's not allowing for growth. It's limiting what can possibly happen. And as we know, the impossible is possible, right? It just hasn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. You know, walking on water, is it possible? Well, we've heard it is, and levitation and all these things. What is it? And all of that, and remote viewing and telekinesis. You know, we just say, oh, those are impossible.
And med beds and regrowing limbs and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Until it happens, and then it becomes possible. So it's conceived. Now, whilst it's possible, it's conceived, if you like, and the impossible is impossible until it happens, and then it becomes part of the paradigm. So this is the constant thing. We've always added in the inconceivable and the impossible into the paradigm, yet we deny the impossible is possible until it happens, and then it becomes normal.
Yeah, that is fascinating, and I think like I'm getting a message or a theme, if you will, from our conversation, and that is, um, if I could offer anything to the viewers that are watching this, and there's a good chance that the people that are doing this probably already do this, but it's like, don't limit yourself. Don't close yourself off from any possibility, from anything. Even if you strongly believe certain things, don't shut the door on other things that you don't necessarily believe in, because you may discover some really cool things there, and so that's what I would love to offer the viewers, if they aren't doing it already, is just to be open to different belief systems, different messages, different thought patterns, different ways of looking at things, and not putting yourself into a it's right or it's wrong, or just because I don't believe it, it's wrong, and close yourself off. Just stay open. I think being open, there's value in that.
It's easier said than done.
It's much easier said than done.
Experientially, but those that get it, and those that get it really enjoyed the experience of opening up limitations that they didn't previously believe they had. Again, when I speak to people with an open mind and we can talk, some people call me savage and blunt and all these different things, but all it is mirroring their own intention back to them. This is what you've just said to me, in a kind of way that shows the limitation within what they've just said. Of course, that can seem harsh. It's not harsh, it's just pure. But the aspect of that then is, you've just seen what you've just said, and you may have said it in these words, but if I ask you what you mean, you haven't got an answer, because there was no pre-thought, there was no meticulous nature to your concept. You were running off an old paradigm, an old belief system that came out in your verbal. So therefore it's in your mind, and you were thinking this. You may have this concept, but you're speaking from that belief system. So this is what I talk to reconciliation and swapping these energies around. Only by showing people, I can't do this, or I can't do that, I need this, and I want that, and he should be doing this, and these sort of concepts. These are very, very simple. All of those are trying to change an external environment. I want to do this, and I need to do that, and you need to do it. No, you don't, and no do they. This is all trying to change something that's outside of your control. Why are you thinking that? Why do you need to? Where's this coming from? These sort of concepts, and then we can dig in. And in that digging in, you get to these questions. Why do you think that? Why did you say that? Where did that come from? What did you mean by that? And they can be quite awkward, because you haven't already answered them before you've said them, because you're not really thinking about what it is you're saying. It's just a lot of this stuff comes out from the old subconscious. Mm-hmm. And in those moments, then you can see where the subconscious has the limitations in its programming. And it's up to you then whether you fight that and get annoyed or angry from that period of pride, if you like, dropping into that anger, or see it for what it is. Shit, yeah, I recognize that now. Where did that come from? And just be open to that change, and we have some wonderful conversations on this, sometimes weed enhanced. It doesn't matter. But and you can sort of catch each other in the limited concepts that are coming through from an older programming, an older system that's still running within you, an older belief system, an older experience system that hasn't quite been filtered yet. And I talked to this a little bit with once the negativity of the past is, or the negative attachment, the emotional attachment to the past is, let's say, neutralized, is accepted. The past experience that you've gone through now is, you've gone through it again and released the negative to a certain degree. When you then speak about it in the present, it gets filtered through the heart. It gets filtered through the heart. We talked to, I think you talked to Randy the other day about the mind being a good slave, or the ego being a good slave and not a very good master. So the heart becomes the master, right? And it gets filtered through the heart, and that's where your meticulous nature comes through, because of the filtering. And then you speak to things from the past without the angst, or without the emotion, without the description. This was a terrible event. This was just an event. So you take these words out, they don't come through anymore. And of course, when you're describing something from the past in the present, and you're still using those words, good, bad, indifferent, bitch, whore, whatever, all of these different stuff, right? that can come up in conversation, and they come out because they're still flowing in that subconscious programming. It's still there in your energy field. It's still attached to you. It's showing itself. It's whether you recognize it and whether somebody else showing you causes the disturbance in it. So I do enjoy the disturbance. I do enjoy the chaos that comes up and the reaction that you get sometimes, not in a negative way, as in a sort of egoic, narcissistic way, but in a way that it's caused a disturbance. Now go and see what comes to the surface. And you process it, take it away, you know, whatever you do with that, great. But if it's caused a disturbance in you, then it's showing you that something needs to be harmonized or something wants to be harmonized. Are you happy to go and see it, you know? And these conversations, you know, you can see, I think you recognize what I'm saying, and you may have experienced it. I just do it my way, you know, Lee. I just speak to it my way, which doesn't suit everybody, and that's fine. Other people do it in different ways, and it does suit you. That's great too. But any disturbance that's caused is good. Don't reactivity, you know, as opposed to response ability. Do you respond or react? We talked to this a long time, and I think most people are au fait with this now, aren't they? I don't know, but it's just describing the process, kind of. That's what I like to do, is have a little look at it experientially, and this is what I did, and this is how I did it, and this is the nuts and bolts of it. This is how I envision it. This is what I see from it, having spent many hours defining what that experience was for myself, not just flowing with it and allowing it to happen, but really wanting to know the mechanics of it for some reason. Spent far too long on my own. But if I can then portray those mechanics in different perspectives to somebody else in a way that they can receive them, wonderful. If I can't, so be it. If I cause the disturbance, great, because now there's something showing itself. Like you said, you prefer the peace.
I just wonder, I think you said this to me in a previous call at some point when we were talking about your home where you live currently, is that you've built a lot of different things, and you've constructed and deconstructed and reconstructed different things inside of your home. And I believe even if I'm not mistaken, even mechanical things, like things with your car and that kind of thing. So it sounds like that maybe that is a part of your nature, at least in this realm, is that you like to take things apart and examine them, and perhaps even see what other things they can do as individual parts, and then, you know, just play with it. So perhaps you take that same mentality into this realm too.
It's that's been prevalent all my life, and I might not always be able to put it back together again. So I'm taking it apart to find out what all the bits do.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's kind of cool, actually. So
it doesn't always go back together.
That's right. Where did this extra screw come from? It was not here before.
Spares. I love the fact that manufacturers always put spares on cars. You know, you take them apart and then you put them back together again. There's always spares there. You know, they give you spares.
It's more frustrating when you're short a part. Though. That's
but you're absolutely bang on, and I've noticed this too. So I like to deconstruct and reconstruct. That's part of what I do, which is why, you know, I also really enjoy those that don't do that. I speak to quite a few, not just feminine, but predominant in the feminine, but also some masculine who don't work on that level. They don't. It's not a level. Don't work on that basis. They don't like to deconstruct. They just like to flow. Yeah. And I look at that, they're much more in the feeling side of it. They're much more in the different, non-conscious, not trying to break things down and understand how it all works. Just accept it all for what it is and flow with it. And that nurture that brings, and that not need to know, and that's that this flow. And I love that in others, because that's not what I do. So therefore I can respect and appreciate the beauty of somebody doing something that I don't do, because somebody's got to do it. So they're doing that, and I chose this, and I enjoy this. Yeah. You know? This is what I enjoy doing. I enjoy taking things apart, regardless of what I can put back together.
Well, variety is a spice of life, right? So it's nice that there's some variety there too.
But appreciating that too. I didn't really used to appreciate it. You know, I didn't. I just saw, if you don't do this, then what are you doing? I didn't appreciate the beauty in not doing it. Now I do so much more, and everybody's got their different roles, choices, whatever you want to choose, however you want to describe it, journeys, paths, and they're all beautiful, and they all do it in different ways. But what it is let's say we're all going from A to Z, or A to Z in America, A to Z.
I'm Z with Canadians too.
Okay, it doesn't matter how you get there, but we're all doing it. And we're all going on a path that gets to a certain point. And we all see it as a different, it's not, it's the same, just done differently. And once you recognize that commonality too, then yeah, man, it just becomes so peaceful. What everybody else is doing becomes peaceful, much less chaotic. I still don't like the disharmonies and the negativity of the collective. I don't enjoy that energy. I don't enjoy that suppression. So I choose not to go into it. It's that simple. But I also appreciate those that have got the energy to go. Randy, for instance, man, that guy, you know, going into people all over the place with all that disharmonic energies and just brings himself into it. It doesn't affect him in the slightest. To me, I couldn't do that. So I love the fact that Randy can, you know, and with no judgment, just thank you, brother. You know, you're doing that. And that's something that's, if it's necessary, well, obviously it's necessary. And that's what he does, you know, so there's no right and wrong with any of this. And that's that acceptance. And it just flows then, brother. Absolutely. Fabulous stuff. Fabulous stuff. So we just,
absolutely.
I don't know if that was that an hour and a half, honestly. Was that 90 minutes so far?
I guess so. I haven't been watching the time, but I know when you and I get going, it's kind of like automatic pilot, and who knows how long it takes, you know.
But I'm just thinking about an hour and a half, 90 minutes worth of chat, and I can't remember much of it. I don't know about you. But I feel that we've covered quite a bit. Even if it's loose, but it's quite in depth. I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of cool because it's kind of I find it all interconnected because there are a few tidbits I remember from earlier in our conversation, and I'm going, yeah, I can see how what we're talking about right now fit with what we said right at the very beginning, and you know that it kind of really kind of loops and interloops and reloops, and you know it all comes back together.
Organic meandering. How's that?
Yeah.
There's a common theme, and it's an organic meander through it, and this stuff, it all bolts together. It all comes together, and the more, I call them data points, dots, like you were saying a bit earlier, the more information that you gather, as long as you don't put it into a belief system and hold on to it fixed, then it becomes data points, right, in your memory, in your subliminal, whatever. The more that comes together, the more the overall picture comes together, and the more the commonality is seen. And therefore you can talk to pretty much anything and bring it back to a theme, because it is of the theme. We just, when we're, you know, again, so there's the kind of theme, and we're over here talking about this, but it's of the theme, even though if we don't recognize.
we weren't in the water, we were of the water.
Yeah. There's a fabulous one about that. It's like the ether. This is a representation of it. Is us denying the ether is like a fish denying water. So it's in it, it's swimming in it, blah, 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 of it, but it can't see it necessarily, so it denies it's there.
And try to ask the fish to define it, and they can't, because they can't see it.
But then if you put another aspect in, and you had fish schools, as opposed to schools of fish, you have fish schools, and you have education system, which actually defines water as non-existent. And it cannot possibly be there, and then creates a whole new definition of rules which deny water exists, and brings in a whole new stasis and a whole new thesis about, let's call it atomism. and then the fish learn that water doesn't exist, whilst being of the water. They learn it doesn't exist, and that's their, you know, and everybody believes that water doesn't exist. All the fish believe that water doesn't exist. Yeah. And you got one fish swimming around saying, look guys, it's fucking water. Oh God, no, it's not. No, it's not. Stop it, conspiracy fish. And that's pretty much where we are. That's where we've been for a while. And it's the same with all the truth. Again, it doesn't. I love all of the truth is good, because all of the truth creates another opening, if you like, of expansion, or another closing, denial. And the more you suppress, the more chaos is required to break that suppression. The less you suppress, the less chaos you experience.
Yeah,
it's that easy.
Being open, I think, is a very healthy thing. That's the message I'm getting. Just being open to any possibility.
I think, again, let's bring it down to relationships. You hold on to a relationship to the very bitter end. Most of us have done, experienced that, right? And the chaos that can bring had you snipped it earlier at a more beneficial point for both of you, all of that experience wouldn't have been necessary. But it was necessary, because you're holding on to that. Now consider that to be a belief system, and you do the same thing. You know, if you're open to release things and let them go, then you don't experience the chaos that you need to change. You can just go, okay, and then move. If you hold on to it, then you may need to break some things to release it. And then it becomes harder, right? And experientially, again, as an analogy, I think most of us can recognize that in our past. In whatever, it could be a job, it could be whatever, we'd have experienced going through that ultimate chaos before we had to move, and then we lost something and lost all this stability, but now we're fine. To whatever degree. Yeah. Again, so we can see so many commonalities, even if they're not experientially different. The theme is the same. What do you think, William? What does Vilci think? Even better.
Simple. Vilci loves simple. The more you can simplify it, the easier it is, the better it is.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying to the complexity. If we can talk to complexity and make it simple, even if it's flippant, what we're doing is adding that to the collective. So cutting through bullshit, even if it's seen as blunt, is cutting through the bullshit. And that goes into the collective consciousness, and those that like cutting through the bullshit to get to the truth, which is most of us. Most people, I've spoken to quite a few people and asked them the question, would you like the truth cotton wooled? Would you like the truth obscured? Or would you like the truth pure and simple? Straightforward and simple, please. Yet when you give the truth straightforward, yeah, yeah, that's what you face. But that's what we'd all like, right? So why don't we do it? It's just that if I want the truth, if I want to be given the truth with no buttering and no comfort, just tell me the truth. Then why don't I do the same for you? Wow. If that's what I would like to receive, then why don't I give that? Why am I trying to give this butterscone thing to satisfy somebody to keep them comfortable when that's not what I want? That's not what I want people to do for me. I want them to be honest with me and give me the utter truth, regardless. Don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me the truth. So why don't I do that for others? Why do I feel I've got to hide it or suppress it? Again,
I have some reasons that could be there, but a lot of it has to do with feeling or people pleasing or that kind of thing too, I think.
Okay.
Or conditioning or any of that kind of stuff.
All of these things, but they're all limitation.
That's definitely, they're all limitation.
So if we are on the inside what we experience on the outside, i.e. creators of our own reality, and yet we're limiting our ability to give what we want to receive, then we're not really living our truth, are we? In those moments. So we're limiting ourselves because of an external factor that has no impact upon us. And we want the truth given to us, but we're not willing to give it to them.
Yeah.
Why not? Okay. So again, these sort of philosophize about that and sit with it. Okay. So what am I trying to, when I'm worried about your feelings or this, that, and the other, what am I really worried about? Your judgment, what your reaction will make me feel.
A retraction of love, perhaps, is something that comes to my mind as a possibility.
Okay. Why are you looking for love? Why are you not love?
Yeah. Why can't I just,
again,
I provide my own love or get love from other places or other things? And
so if we're not love, we need love from others. Does that work? When you actually just ask that question, am I not love? Am I not purity myself? Do I need to receive love to be love, or am I love? So now I'm worried about how I say things because I may not get loved, but I am love. How can I not get loved? These kind of concepts come in. You just, the question's more important than the answer. So people judge the way I say things as too blunt or too this or too black and white. That's your opinion.
Black and white. Wow. I don't get black and white at all. I get rainbow colors and all kinds of things.
I'm very binary, you know that, brother. It's either this or it's that. So I don't work on gray areas or complexity. It's either this or it's that. Either I am a soul or I am a human. I am minuscule and insignificant, or I am creation. There's no in between. I am, I'm pregnant or I'm not. It's not. I might, this could be there, but what's the point? You either are or you're not. Well, don't worry about the might be. So I'm very much black and white in that respect. It's very much binary for me. But that makes it simple for me, keeping it easy. It's a switch, it's yes or no. If it go into complexity, then it all starts to get Vilci, simple. Let's keep it simple. So binary, Occam's razor, binary, simple answers. which is black and white. People don't like that. People like sitting in the gray. Oh, it could be because then they can sway, you can sit on the fence, don't need to make a decision. So if I'm love, then I must be love. And I define love as truth and transparency. So that's what I will be. Your reaction to that can't define me. So, you can't take love away from me. You can only not give it me, or give me your whatever. So be it. It's fine.
I had a very a deep thought, if you will. It felt deep, anyways. That it felt a little scary. It felt a little overwhelming, and it felt very large. But it very much speaks to what we were just talking about. And what came to mind, to be more specific, instead of this sort of nebulous thing that I'm going through right now, is I was thinking of marriage. This concept of monogamy, and or even the opposite of monogamy, polygamy, and that kind of thing. It's like, again, is either right or wrong, really? I mean, there's conditioning, and does there even need to be a commitment to marriage? I mean, that kind of thing. I kind of sense that. And then, like I've been hearing too, in some of the different things that I'm following, is that there's, and you've even touched on it earlier in our conversation, is that there's a lot of information that has been withheld over the centuries that it sounds like is going to become more open and released. And that's going to shake a lot of very deep-rooted traditional beliefs that all of us, I think, or many of us, have grown up with. I'm speaking specifically about religions, the history of Jesus, and perhaps some of the other prophets as well, and all of that kind of thing. There are things coming that sound like to me, will rock a lot of people's worlds. And so, but marriage and religion were the two that came to my mind as sort of deep-rooted biggies, and thinking, does somebody have to get married? Or does someone have to go through what they go through to get married, and getting licenses and all that kind of stuff? And that's a whole other subject for a whole other day, I think. But it just felt huge. It felt really big. But it felt like there's room for simplification of those realms as well.
Yeah. Let's take the word belief and indoctrination. Put indoctrination in. What's it called? Stockholm syndrome. You start to believe all the captors' propaganda. Yeah. So all of this is, for me, it's all, the complexity is brought in to befuddle the masses and to create confusion. And the more complexity, the better. Especially
and limitation. I think I would add the word limitation.
That's what I was going to say. Especially complexity that creates limitation and anti-logos, illogical. What the fuck's that? What's going on? Why would we do that? This sort of concept where just who thought, and again, that illogic, seriously? And that's what we see everywhere. Everywhere you look, you ask a simple question, you don't get a simple answer. You get a convoluted, complicated, ridiculous natured answer that leaves everything open to conjecture, but tells you it's fact. And experientially, you've got no idea. You're just believing somebody because he apparently he's got some licenses and doctrines, and even the vicar or the registrar that can marry you has to be licensed to marry him. What the fuck? What? I remember going back when I was really young, and a very good friend of mine, an old friend of mine, was married, and they never went through any of this. They had 2 sets of vows they wrote together and put it on a wall in a frame, and that was them done. And then, for them, that was it, and they were both happy with it. That was their choice. Monogamy is a choice. Polygamy is a choice. Whatever you want to experience.
Yep.
But up to you. It's an agreed upon set of rules that we create when we join with somebody else or become a partner with somebody else. What are you going to do? I'm going to do that. Oh, and that's not for me. Okay, so be it. We don't need to do all of these things that are regulated as if they are, or certificated. If it's not certified, it's not real. What a joke.
Yeah.
And these concepts, but yet we know you can't drive a car without a license. Can't you?
There are ways, apparently. There are ways out there, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's hard to find and hard to,
You
step away
can't
from.
get tax rebates for your wedding ceremony without a marriage certificate. You can't be seen as a couple without the government certificate saying, or the registrar of births, deaths, and marriages stating you are. You know.
Well, don't forget when you got slapped in the bottom when you first entered this dimension.
Show me your birth certificate. Well,
Exactly.
I haven't got one. Am I not here?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm illegitimate. Yeah.
I can remember having to get them, brother, years and years ago. I can't remember what for. It may have been for a passport or something. I can't remember. Or it may have been for this, that, and the other. I had to prove who I was by showing my birth certificate.
And there's another passport too, you know.
Passport. These kind of ideas. And we were asked, we did a Thailand meeting with a team in Thailand. Beautiful, divine brothers and sisters over there. So beautiful to speak to. GPMS stuff. And
I saw that video.
No, this is one we did Friday, just gone.
Oh, okay. So the next step.
Well, we've done
or the next update. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've done 6 with them, so 3 months worth. But I think I may have sent you one. Maybe, I don't know. But one of the questions was on international regulation. Will there still be international? Well, what will the international regulations be? And to simplify the answer, it was 2 letters. Well, none or no. What kind of human mentality would create the same certification regulation systems that are in place now in this corporate capitalistic structure of slavery? You know, no, we don't need any of that. And it's like, okay, let's micro macro this. You've got a house and you've got people come around to your house. Do you need to put up a list of things they need to know prior to coming into your house? Or can they be trusted to behave, you know? And we can argue the opposite to this, but in general, the morals and ethics are on the inside. We know how to behave and we know what to do. If you take away the oppression, suppression, poverty, and all the need for profit and loss and gain and motivations and all this stuff, which is what we generally do when we turn up at somebody else's house, we don't need international regulations.
I sell tickets for people who come to my place, you know, because I need to make some money.
Unwritten. Well, William, you may have written ones, and that's fine. We could agree that William Sicey has a written list. That's fine, you know, we can agree to that. But it doesn't have to apply internationally. It doesn't have to be like the way it was prior, which limits everybody's ability. I mean, even down to insurance companies limit responsibility. Accountability is removed when you have insurance. So that's part of the corporate state, to take away the ability of one to be accountable for one's own actions now, because the insurance company will pay and cover all the damages that you caused. Well, if that was not the case, then I would posit that there would be a lot less accidents per se, and people would be a lot more, let's say, responsible, having not got that cushion to fall back upon. Of course, they'll tell us there's all these reasons why insurance is necessary and blame the public for it. Okay, but let's just take away the most of the fear about insurance. If you're a multi-billionaire or millionaire, A, the law doesn't apply to you, and B, you don't need insurance. But if you're a general run-of-the-mill human populace, the law does apply to you, because the legal fines are expensive, and insurance is necessary, because if you do manage to make a mistake, then you can't afford to pay, So again, it's all in levels, and we can see this, and people could argue that the law does apply to the rich. Does it? Does it? Be honest with yourselves. Does it? If they get fined 50 grand for something, does it matter? No. If we do, huge. And you can see the levels then. You can see a little bit more. Again, not bringing in anything more than just stuff that's fact. So these levels of fines and all the rest of it don't work, and this level of regulations don't work. They just create more oppression of the masses and release the few out of it. You haven't got that certificate, you haven't got this, you can't do that. That doesn't apply to people with a lot of money. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a lot of money. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking to the social disparity, and how what we believe as the masses is the norm doesn't apply once you get to a certain point in wealth, let's say. But it does, it's very, very meaningful here. And of course, that creates another disparity in the separation and division within the people. All of this needs to be released. And I say the word needs, will be released, is being released, is being harmonized. and is being uplifted as we go through this process of wildfire came to mind. The
evaporation was the word that came to my mind for whatever reason.
Oh, great. Well, I see it as a wildfire going through and burning away all the old undergrowth.
Yep.
Ready for the new growth, right?
The useless stuff, the stuff that is of no value anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
It should have been recognized a long time ago. But
Yeah.
it covered itself with good camouflage and pretended it wasn't there. Beautiful ways of saying these things. And again, they all come round to the same theme.
Yep.
This comes forward. Fabulous, brother. Fabulous. I think, I don't know, 2 hours, I think that is somewhere.
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good. I'm feeling it too. So
and anybody that does actually get through to this part, my love to you all. If you've managed to listen to this for 2 hours, fabulous, guys. It's been fabulous. It's been wonderful to do it, William, and I'm glad that we've done it eventually and put the record button on.
Yeah.
Even though in general I haven't spoken to an audience with this one. Generally I do. When the audit is pressed, I speak to people. I've tried to keep this one between us two. We'll see what transpires. We'll see if there's any feedback at all.
Yeah, I know for me, I'm still, I look at a video and I go, 1 hour, I'm not sure I'm going to watch that one. It's just too long. I still have that mentality myself. So I'm tempted to say, okay, I don't want to edit this, but I do want to cut it into smaller sections. So I don't know, but it might ruin the flow of it though. So
you can put it out as a 2 hour one and then do it in snippets.
Yeah, I could do that.
Do what you will. I've always said to you, William, my words are yours. I just speak. You say about channel a lot of the time. This is the seat of the soul. So you speak. It's not so much. It could be seen as channeling. It's just speaking without thinking.
Yeah, that's a great way to define it. It's like the only thing I do, I don't go through any special rituals. I don't even do, I take a couple of deep breaths. I do that and I close my eyes and that's all I do. I mean, I don't call on something from somewhere else. We were talking about meditation at the very beginning of this call.
Yes, that's right.
And it's like, okay, well, you do meditation the way you do it, right? And that's okay.
Speak without thinking. Yeah, that's an interesting concept for a lot of people. And it kind of, it's the other side of the complexity that Randy speaks to: simple, complex, simple. If you can get from that simple to through the complex to the simple on the other side and speak without thinking, a lot of people say they do that anyway, but I'm talking about consciously speaking without thinking, which some people call channeling. I don't believe that necessarily for me. It's just speaking from the soul, if you like. Purity, you don't need to complicate it with this.
Yeah.
And it comes out different, and you don't really remember what it is that you said. You kind of look back and, wow, like Vilci, this wisdom comes out from nowhere. It's like, okay. Yeah,
literally, it feels like it's coming from nowhere, from the ethers. Exactly.
Well, the soul, right? You are of the ether, so it is you. The soul depends. Again, in a lot of people's minds, where is the soul? Is it, what these sort of concepts? And again, is it in us or is it outside of us? Is there anything outside of us? And a lot of this comes in. Again, let's not go too deep on that because we've covered a little bit of this, and there's some food for thought like going into conjecture. Yeah. Even though you could probably see it as conjecture anyway. However, I've got coherent theory behind most of this stuff.
I had to smirk when you said, speak without thinking. And I was thinking of Randall, and I'm going, yeah, Randall gets that all the time. People calling him, say, you're talking without thinking, man. And he gets a lot of criticisms that way. But actually, it's really the opposite in so many ways.
Sure. It's pure. This is the thing about it's people. That's people's judgment, right? Randy's speaking his truth from the seat of his soul. He doesn't need to think about it. It just is. There can be no other way. So that's what Randy speaks to.
Yeah, and what I love about Randall is that there's a playful nature about it all, and it's just he shared with you and I a picture of him when he was a kid, and you could see the little devilish playfulness in his eyes, in his smile, and he still has it to this day. And I love that because there's a certain innocence about that too.
It's got to be fun, brother. It's got to be fun. This is the point about it. This is going to be fun. Why not? As I said, release the child. The child doesn't think. The child just says what the child wants to say, right? And I think that's the same thing. So we're speaking from the inner child, that purity, that seat of the soul. I'm sure that when I was a child, I wasn't putting in shitloads of complication from indoctrination and regulation that the government's told me to propagandized. I was, what's that? Why is that doing that? You know, and just stating things as they are. That's kind of what I'm talking to with speaking without thinking.
Yeah.
Release all of that.
Great place to end there. We'll doff our hats or tip our hats or whatever. And
I do my cap. I haven't got one. I'm just looking around for a cap. I haven't got one. It's been a pleasure, brother. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what comes out of this and whether you can snippetize it, if that's a word. And if it isn't, it should be. Or not.
Well, one thing I will do is I'll throw it up as the whole complete thing for starters, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Fabulous. My love to you, brother. We just close the recording if we're going to stay on, or if we're going to finish it, let me know.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for viewing, and have an awesome rest of your day and transformation and whatever else goes through in your life in the next little while. So blessings to you all.
Anybody that watches, my love to you all, love and light to you all. It's been another pleasure, William. Thank you very much, brother. And Vilci and any other part of you that we've been speaking to this evening has been wonderful. Thank you.